People say the scariest part of college is the high cost of tuition. They're wrong. The scariest part is discovering you're not the only one living in your off campus apartment, even when the unit above you is supposed to be empty. For one freshman at the University of Minnesota, everything began with footsteps in the abandoned apartment above her. Her name is Mayla, a Hmong freshman from Wisconsin, attending the University of Minnesota Twin Cities. When she first moved to Minneapolis, she stayed with her aunt and uncle. But the commute was exhausting. Her little cousins made study at home impossible, and she constantly felt obligated to help with chores and errands around the house. So she finally found her own place, a small one-bedroom unit in a quiet, old brick apartment building near the campus. Her parents were nervous, but Mayla was excited and proud of herself. Living alone meant freedom. No checking in, eat whenever she wanted, no little cousins barging in, no chores waiting. Everything was perfect. Her building was over 100 years old, creaking stairs, clanging radiators, long, dim hallways. Typical Minneapolis buildings. She lived on the second floor, and Unit 3B, directly above her, has been empty for months. So this should give her some peace and quiet from above. At least that's what she thought. The entire third floor was scheduled for renovation, so all 4 units were vacant. It wasn't fancy, but it was quiet, close to campus, and most importantly, surprisingly affordable. And for Mayla, it was freedom. Until the footsteps started. Around midnight, Mayla heard footsteps above her. Not running, not stopping, just slow, steady pacing. Back and forth, back and forth. She assumed someone moved in late. Or maybe, just maybe, someone snuck in to stay there secretly. But when she mentioned it to the manager, he shook his head and said, "No one is in 3B. It's been vacant since last winter." Maya didn't know what to make of this. And what was worse, a stranger hiding upstairs or footsteps with nobody living there? Weeks passed. She almost got used to the footsteps. Then the footsteps changed. It got louder, and they started reacting to her, imitating her. She walked to the kitchen. The footsteps shifted above the kitchen. She sat at her desk. They moved above her desk. She lay in bed. They settled above her bed. One night, she took a single step backward. The footsteps above her did the same. Perfectly synchronized. Old buildings creak, but they don't mirror you. Eventually, the footsteps were ruining her sleep. She was exhausted in class, constantly on edge. She finally told the manager, "I think someone broke into the upstairs. Do something or I'm calling the cops." The manager went pale. He avoided her eyes. "I'll check it tonight," he said softly. "I'll bring maintenance as well." At 8 p.m., he called her. He said the unit was empty, dusty, untouched, no signs of anyone. That terrified her even more. The next night, her 2 college friends came over. They didn't believe any of it and wanted to check for themselves. They all walked up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was silent, lights flickering, carpet worn thin. They reached Unit 3B. The door was dusty. The peephole was covered with tape from within. One of her friends knocked. No answer. The friend knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. They turned to leave when footsteps approached the door from the inside. Light, slow, deliberate. All three of them froze. The footsteps stopped right behind the door. The doorknob twitched just once, as if something has grabbed it. One of her friends whispered, "We're done. We're done." They sprinted downstairs. The next morning, Mayla demanded an answer from the property manager. She threatened to break her lease contract and leave right away. The manager sighed. This building wasn't always apartments. Over 50 years ago, it was a small psychiatric boarding house. Not a hospital, not an asylum, just a place where long-term patients lived. When the boarding house was shut down, the building was renovated and converted into apartments. New paint, new floors, new doors. But the history never left, and Unit 3B had a story of its own. A few years ago, a grad student moved into 3B. Normal guy, focused, quiet. But the neighbors heard strange things. Furniture dragging late at night. Footsteps circling in tight loops. The door opening and closing, even though nobody saw him leave. Then one night, everything escalated. Frantic slamming, drawers ripping open, cabinets shaking. When the manager rushed upstairs, the doors was sealed from the inside. The grad student had metal brackets, bars drilled into the frame, the entire door blocked. He wasn't keeping people out. He was keeping something else in. The police forced the door open, one bracket at a time. When they finally got inside, the room was empty. No broken window, no escape route, no hole in the ceiling, no place to hide. His coat hung on the door, his wallet on the counter. Dinner was half prepped. But he was gone, never came back. And as far as the managers know, he was never found. Nobody who knows the history of the apartment wants to stay in Unit 3B, or even in the units near it. That's why the rent was so cheap. After learning this, Mayla started having dreams. Not normal dreams. Dreams that felt so real. Every night she saw Unit 3B as it looked decades ago, when the building was still a psych house. But nothing in the dreams was peaceful. She saw nurses in pale uniforms, faces blurred, gloves trembling. She saw them restraining patients who didn't need restraining, dragging them across the floor, forcing them into corners, whispering over their cries. And always, the nurses forced them to walk in circles, the same looping pattern Mayla heard every night, the same loops found in the dust, the same loops the vanished student walked. Every morning, she woke up sweating, unsure which was worse, the footsteps above her or the dreams inside her. On her final night, the dreams came back sharper than ever. She saw the nurses again, forcing terrified patients to walk in tight, repeating circles, around and around, never stopping. Then one nurse turned and stared directly at Mayla. She jolted awake, and she wasn't alone. Because this time, the footsteps weren't upstairs. They were inside her apartment, in her living room, just outside of her bedroom, slow, deliberate, carefully tracing the same loops from her dreams. A circle, then another, and another. The footstep drifted past her kitchen, past her couch, and stopped at her bedroom door. The doorknob began to shake, gently, then a little bit more. Mayla froze. She pinched herself. She was awake. A voice inside her whispered, "Run, Mayla, run." She grabbed her keys, sprinted barefoot out the door, and then stopped until she reached one of her friend's dorm. She moved out the very next morning. It is said that Unit 3B remains permanently sealed. Dusty footprints still appear in perfect looping patterns. Tenants below never stay long, and those who remain report the same thing. Footsteps above them, copying their movements, dreams that grow more vivid the longer they stay there. Same loops, same hours, same rhythm. Because whatever happened in Unit 3B never stopped walking. Not in the room, not in the dreams, not in the dark.